Good afternoon. And on behalf of the Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage, it is my pleasure to welcome Professor Vasant Shinde to the final lecture of INTAC's lecture series on India's maritime heritage. Today, Professor Shinde will speak on Indian maritime history and the development of National Maritime Museum at Lothal. India has a rich and diverse, uninterrupted maritime history that began with the Harappan period around 5,000 years ago. India has a vast coastline of over 11,000 kilometers, and it encompasses 9 major states and 4 union territories. Indians were pioneers in maritime trade activities, shipbuilding technologies, and developing ports and dockyards. The entire maritime history of the country will be showcased in the upcoming National Maritime Heritage Complex at Lothal, an archaeological site that has yielded the world's first man-made dockyard. Indians from the early times have generated wealth by establishing flourishing and beneficial maritime trade links with countries located in the Indian Ocean Rim region and beyond. Professor Shinde is a former professor and vice chancellor of the Deccan College, Pune, and former founding director general, National Maritime Heritage Complex. He is a world-renowned archaeologist and one of the foremost scholars in South Asia. He has been actively involved in public archaeology and has established groups in Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Haryana to protect the cultural heritage of the country and generate awareness of the same among the general public. His contributions to archaeology in India and abroad take the form of a large number of research papers, edited volumes and other publications comprising 12 books, 2 monographs, 19 edited books, journals, 133 papers in national journals, books, and 72 research papers in international journals and books alone, in addition to 24 popular articles in magazines and other periodicals. His most significant breakthrough research contribution includes the first DNA analysis and craniofacial reconstruction of the Harappan people. And now, without much ado, sir, it is over to you. Ladies and gentlemen, request you all to put your phones on silent.
So, respected Dr. Singh, the member secretary, I know him as a cultural secretary, very dynamic cultural secretary. Manisha ji for inviting me, INTAC also for inviting, and the other colleagues and the friends. Firstly, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the INTAC for giving me this opportunity to speak about the maritime history and the museum that is coming up at Lothal in Gujarat. Now the background, why this particular museum is being constructed at Lothal. There are 2 reasons. One is that, this was visualized, the whole concept was visualized by our Honorable Prime Minister. And rightly so, because, in India, we do not have this type of museum, in fact, where we can showcase our entire heritage. And India is considered the maritime nation, in fact, because we have such a huge maritime history. Perhaps, maybe the biggest, maritime history in the world. And, recently the government of India has calculated the area, the maritime area. In the books, you may be reading that, India has something like 7,500 plus kilometer long coastline. But recently the government has recalculated and it is coming up around more than 11,000 kilometers. So such a huge coastline that we have. And the site of Lothal has the earliest evidence of man-made dockyard anywhere in the world. Yesterday you must have heard about this dockyard and the scientific research done by my friend Rajiv Nigamji and the NIO. I think now scientifically it has been established that this is the first man-made dockyard anywhere in the world. So that is a backdrop to this particular project. And the other reason that our government has more emphasis on developing the remote areas. And Lothal was relatively very remote area. When I joined this project in 2019, the land price around this site was something like 50,000 to 60,000 per biga. And today the land price has gone up to 2 crores per biga. And of course, there's a lot of development happening. The government of Gujarat has also established LADA, the Lothal Area Development Authority. And there is going to be a new township, in fact, around Lothal. So these are the backgrounds, because of which this particular museum has been conceived at this particular place. So when it comes to this, Lothal, because I think we have not really realized the importance of Lothal. The whole world has realized the importance, but somehow we have not given the due respect and the attention to this particular site. We have actually the Indians, when I say Harappans, because Harappans are the founders of the Indian culture, Bharatiya culture basically. Most of the traditions and the knowledge system that was developed by the Harappans, that has continued till today without any break. And we feel proud, in fact, we feel proud, that we are connected to our roots, in fact, which go back to the Harappans. So one of the most important, why the Harappans started developing the trade contact, there are two reasons, in fact. One is that, Harappans had, they did not have a lot of resources within the Harappan region. And they were very innovative people, in fact. They wanted to develop, in fact. They wanted to develop the culture. They wanted to go to the next level. And they thought that, if you want to develop, in fact, you need to have a lot of resources. And they did not have resources. So what they did first, they had the technology. The Harappans had technology with them. So what they did, they started developing contact first with the hinterland communities. Because, around Harappans, outside the Harappan region, there were a number of communities, early farming communities, what we call. And Harappans established contact with them, and they started getting the raw materials from them. And they processed the raw material in their workshops. And they started supplying the finished goods to the same people from whom they acquired the raw material. And then at one stage, the Harappans realized that, the revenue that they're generating, that is not really good enough, in fact, to go to the next level. And that is how they began to develop the maritime contacts. And they first developed contact with Oman. And there is a site called Ras Al Junaij, that was the earlier name. Now the government has renamed the Oman government as Ras Al Jind. And of course, there is Ras Al Had also in Oman. And the archaeological excavations there, they have produced enough data to indicate that, these sites were directly connected to Lothal. In fact, I was part of the excavations at Ras Al Jind, and the Harappan pottery that was recovered, that was subjected to the scientific research. And we could pinpointly, establish that the pottery has gone, from Lothal, not from other sides, but from Lothal to this place. So there was a direct link, with this country. And then, of course, further they established contact with Persian Gulf, and then with Oman, with Bahrain and Mesopotamia, and they went up to Egypt. So that is how, the Harappans, could reach, for the first time, in fact, beyond the boundaries. And they were able to generate so much wealth. I always consider that, Harappans have plundered, in fact, the West. They were generating so much wealth from that part, because that is reflected in the archaeological data also. We get a lot of Harappan, material data at those sites, in fact, located in these countries. but we find very few data in fact coming from that side. So that means the trade was beneficial to the Harappans, and they were generating, they were exporting a lot of goods, and that is how the Harappans generated so much wealth. And that wealth was not buried, in fact, unlike Mesopotamians or Egyptians. They buried a lot of wealth in their royal tombs. They wasted the wealth, in fact, in creating those monumental architecture like pyramids, ziggurats, which are of no use to the common people. The Harappans had different philosophy. Firstly, the Harappans had different administrative systems. They had definitely the democratic setup, panchayat system. The Egyptians and the Mesopotamians had the royal system. In fact, they had monarchical system. So the development happened in fact in that region was only around the royal families, not beyond that. Whereas the Harappans that they generated the wealth, that wealth was used for creating infrastructure and for the welfare of the common people. And that is how the Harappans developed cities and towns for the common people. And that is one of the best maybe example that how the Indians have contributed to the knowledge system in fact in the world. So the site of Lothal, where the Archaeological Survey of India had carried out excavation, is almost in the center of Saurashtra. You can see that it is almost equidistant to major cities, in fact Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar, Vadodara and Rajkot. But today, before this particular project, this was a barren land, in fact nothing was growing in fact in this part. Very close to this, very close to the ancient site, the government of India, the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, they decided to establish this particular complex at this particular, very close to the ancient site. So over the area of almost 400 acre, 375 acre is being allotted for this particular project, and 25 acre of land is for the staff quarters. So this was inaugurated. The foundation stone was laid by Honorable Prime Minister in February 2019. And then, of course, the work started on this project. Overall plan, you can see that the overall plan of this particular project. Now we have, this is a complex, National Maritime Heritage Complex. So museum is one component of this complex. So towards the northern side, you can see this is the part of the museum that is coming up here. Then there is a circular portion here, which we call as Bagicha, where which is meant for the tourists to maybe get down here, and also there is a lot of parking area available here. And also there are two villages. On this side there is a village called Saragwala, and on the other side there is a village called Uthelia. So they were using this particular trail for the for communication purpose. So we are providing them the elevated road, in fact, which will go without any disturbance to the complex. So people can travel between these two villages. And then, of course, we also, towards the southern part of this Bagicha area, we are developing the maritime heritage city rather. So this maritime heritage city, we will be reconstructing this particular city based on the evidence from ancient maritime cities, right from the Harappans till almost the medieval period. So all the components will be integrated. And on the periphery of that, we are developing the coastal pavilions. We have invited, there are 9 coastal states, major states, and 4 union territories on the coastal part. So we have invited to develop their tangible and intangible heritage in their pavilion respectively here. And to the south of that, these are the 4 components. In fact, we have theme parks. One is the naval theme park, the other one is the monument theme park, the third one is the climate change theme park, and the amusement park here, because we are developing this as a major tourist destination. And for the tourists, we are also developing this heritage and the eco resorts and the hotels here, restaurants, etc. So this is going to be a major tourist destination, in fact, in this part of the country. So this is a 3D view of that, how it will look like. So you can see here, in fact, this DGLL is also developing one of the tallest lighthouse museums, in fact. The entire development of the lighthouse can be showcased in this particular museum here. So that is being developed by that. And there's a big presence, in fact, at the site of the Indian Navy and Indian Coast Guard. I think they are developing perhaps the biggest gallery in this particular complex here. So this particular part, the museum is developed, is being developed by the government. Apart from the museum, there will be research institute and the 5D theater also. So that complex will be developed by the government. And the entire museum, of course, it is a huge museum. We have conceived nearly 14 different galleries in which the entire 5,000 years of history, maritime history, will be showcased at one place. So we will not be able to develop all the 14 galleries at one go. So in phase 1A, we are developing these 6 galleries, and this is part of that, the part of the museum that is being developed in this particular phase. So there will be some facilities for the tourists also here. There is a parking area. Also, we are developing the hotels and restaurants, partly here in this particular part. So the construction that is happening, you can see this is the status of the construction till date. I think the construction is in full swing, and we are hoping that this particular phase 1A will be completed by September this year. I think the work is happening. It is in very advanced stage, and we are confident that we'll be able to complete this work by September this year, and probably in October itself, the Honorable Prime Minister will inaugurate this particular museum. You can see more development here. One of the decommissioned warship also has been brought here by Indian Navy, and it has been placed outside, and they have developed interactive museum inside also. So it is not only that one can see the warship, but also one can see the functioning of the facilities inside the warship. And also similarly, there is this naval transport plane. That plane also has now interactive museum inside. So there will be a lot of things, in fact, for the visitors, in fact, because not only the museum galleries are not only the attraction, but also there's a lot of attraction outside also. So these are the 14 galleries that we are developing. So gallery 1 is the orientation and oceanic traditions. Then second is the Harappan, the pioneer seafarers. Third is the post-Harappan trajectories, impact of climate change. Then fourth is India's contact with the Greco-Roman world. We have a special gallery for the special exhibitions, gallery number 5. Then we have this gallery number 6, evolution of Indian Navy and Indian Coast Guard. Gallery number 7 is trade and cultural relations with Southeast Asia and beyond. Gallery 8, maritime traditions of Gujarat, because this project is happening in Gujarat. And Gujarat has perhaps the most vibrant maritime history in the country. We also are developing the age of Emporia contact in gallery number 9, particularly the contributions of Cholas, Pallavas, and their expeditions and their contributions. Also developing Maratha naval power, because Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, he developed a very strong naval power. So we want to showcase that here. The Europeans started coming, in fact, after the landing of Vasco da Gama in 1498. And then, of course, number of European powers, in fact, came here. So the arrival of Europeans will be showcased in gallery number 11. There is a special children's gallery, perhaps the biggest gallery that we are dedicating for the children. Then we also have traditional shipbuilding and navigation techniques of India. And lastly, the Indian shipping post-independence. The contribution of the Minister of Shipping, basically, that we will be showcasing here. So in the first gallery, we will be, of course, showcasing the science of sea. Basic information will be provided in this. Then the movement of prehistoric man. The movement started, in fact, long back, almost 1.5 million years ago. And people were traveling from one continent to another continent by using maybe the small dugout boats, canoes. Then also the underwater archaeology, the importance of underwater archaeology and its contribution. Then Indian oceanic traditions that we want to showcase. We have a lot of these traditions. So that will be showcased, in fact, by using maybe a lot of interactive and digital technologies. And so this is, and then of course, this gallery is going to give you orientation, what you are going to see in the remaining galleries. So this is the overall plan, in fact, of gallery number 1. And then, of course, the real history starts. The maritime history starts with the Harappans. This gallery, of course, will showcase, some of the aspects of the Harappan lifestyle, the knowledge system that was developed by the Harappans, and the maritime contacts they had, with the outside world. And what are the goods that were produced by the Harappans for the trade purpose? What goods were imported by the Harappans? Maybe the cultural impact on each other's regions. All this will be showcased in this particular gallery. And as far as the Harappans are concerned, as I mentioned that this is the the first culture, in fact, in the world who started maritime contacts. So they develop very good maybe contacts with outside world. First by the land routes. We, on the basis of the archaeological data, we have been able to reconstruct the land routes properly. And we can, you can see here, in fact, they have used 2 land routes. One, from here to this Shari Sokta in Iran, and then it goes further to Mesopotamia. And the other route is, from Bampur, it goes further to Tepe Yaya and to Mesopotamia and Egypt further. And then, of course, the other land, the maritime routes that they develop. From Lothal, they used to sail directly through this route to Ras Al Junaid first, Ras Al Jin, and then of course to the Persian Gulf region, and then of course by using this maritime route, they used to go up to Egypt. So that is how the Harappans were able to carry out very efficiently the trade activities by using the maritime trade or maritime routes. And we know that based on the archaeological data, Melua, of course, is the name given in the Mesopotamian text. And based on the list of the goods that were imported from Melua, it has been established that Melua was the ancient name of the Harappan region. And then, of course, there is a mention about Magan. Also, the scholars have identified Bahrain and Oman, part of that, as ancient Magan. Also, there is a mention about Dilmun, the coastal part, connecting the Mesopotamia. So that this is the ancient different regions, and the Meluans, the Harappans, had very, very flourishing contacts with all these ancient different regions or the civilizations. So this is a site, maybe the site of Lothal. This was excavated between 1955 and 62 by S.R. Rao of the Archaeological Survey of India. And this particular structure that you see here, this was the structure which was excavated fully. And when it was excavated, S.R. Rao declared that this is a ancient dockyard. But there were scholars who were not ready to accept. There are a number of European and the American scholars, even some Indian scholars. They said that no, this could be just simply a sweet water tank. Maybe tank for sweet water, so that water can be used for irrigation purpose also. But there is no need, because there is a river, in fact, Bhogav River, very close to the site, and there was no dearth of the sweet water, in fact, at Lothal and around Lothal. There are 2 very important events, in fact. One is that the scientific research that was done by Professor Rajiv Nigam and NIO. So they found the these remains of the maritime fauna in that. And the other, when SR was excavating, he invited the Navy people, the experts from Navy, and without letting them know what he thinks about this particular structure, he wanted to get information from them. And after observing this, they said that the only function of this particular structure could be a dockyard. And that is how this was established. And then excavations carried out has also yielded a very interesting feature. You can see here, this is a sloping platform here, you can see, a brick platform that connected the warehouse, which is roughly maybe 100 to 150 feet away from this particular dockyard. And secondly, the bricks which were used, the mortar that they used for binding these bricks was bitumen, the waterproof substance, not the simple clay. And also the revealing of the maritime flora and fauna that established this particular structure. So this sloping platform is called wharf, and according to the Indian Navy experts, this is absolutely essential. In fact, for the dockyard, this is required. See, this was not a port which was directly located on the coast. This was more or less a river and port. And during the heydays of the Harappans, between 2600 BC to 2000 or 1900 BC, the sea level was higher, and that has been established. How much, it is not clear. But the scientists from, the geologist from MS University, Professor Meher, he carried out a lot of research, and he has established that the sea level was quite high, and the sea level has gone down. Maybe how much, that is not clear, around 1900 BCE. So when the sea level was higher, the water during the high tidal activities used to come up to the side, and that time maybe the ships were flying in fact, ships were coming that time, and when water started receding, maybe the ships were going back. And then of course that is one function of this particular structure. So it had two functions. One function of this is that it was used as a port, and the second function that that there is a proper maybe inlet and spill out or the spillway. So the other function that this could be emptied and could be used for repairing and also for maintenance of the ships. This is very important. So this is called the dry dock, and very close to this, I think Archaeological Survey of India has started new excavation, because when they excavated the site, it was hardly 10 to 15% they excavated that time. So we had no idea, in fact. Now we had no maybe holistic understanding about the entire history, maritime history of Lothal. But I believe that close to this dockyard, there could be shipbuilding yard also. So we must find out that also. So this is a very, very important. In fact, nowhere in the world this type of structure exists. And close to that, as I said, that close to that is a warehouse. So you can see the warehouse. The nature of the warehouse. It looks like maybe platforms or the small maybe platforms that we see in the mandai. In fact, in the maybe sabji mandi or so that kind of these platforms were used for keeping goods. The goods which were to be traded, that were placed on these. And then sloping platform was used in fact for dragging goods up and down, and putting the ship goods on the ship. So this is a very important structure, and you can see that that there were 12 platforms, and also passage people can walk through this passage also. So this is a reconstruction done by S.R. Rao based on the archaeological evidence. So the dockyard has been shown here, the sloping platforms connecting the warehouse. This is a big building here. The building is not visible, in fact, this is reconstructed by him. But one can see, if you visit the site, you can see a series of maybe bathrooms there. And that indicates that perhaps there were a number of rooms there. And I believe that perhaps there was a maybe guest house. The merchants coming from Melua, from outside, maybe outside Melua, maybe from Dilmun, Magan, they could have stayed in fact, in this particular guest house. So this is very, very important structure. And then of course, this is a part, which S.R. Rao says that this is a part of the upper town, and this is a part of the lower town. Also, they found a cemetery here, roughly 800 meters away from this. But you can see that this is the river Bogao, and there's a channel connecting this inlet here, and there's a small locking device here. So whenever the ships are brought here, this locking device could be, through this locking device it could be closed, and when this was used as a dry dockyard, they can close here, and they can remove water from here, and you could use this as a dockyard. So for the first time, he found this evidence. Because before the excavation at Lothal, we were not sure, in fact, whether the Harappans had contact with outside world. But he found for the first time these particular seals. These are the seals from Persian Gulf region. Also, you can see this is a bun-shaped copper ingot. In Persia, this is how the copper was stored, in fact. So, the remains of that is found here. And subsequently, even you can see that from other sites, like from Dholavira and other places, we also find this type of what we call as a black sleeve jar. It looks like amphora. The only difference is that it does not have handles. Amphora has handle. So I believe that the Romans, before the discovery, we thought we have learned the technique of maybe shipbuilding activities from the Romans. But actually, the Romans have learned from us, in fact, because we have the earliest evidence of that. And the amphora concept may have been derived from this particular spot. And probably the Harappans were maybe exporting some very precious liquid through these, maybe oil or maybe fish oil or some other precious liquid. So the remains of these have been reported from a number of sites in West Asia, particularly Oman, Bahrain, and Mesopotamia also. So a lot of products were made here, in fact. This at the site of Lothal, you find the manufacturing activity also on large scale. And these are some of the goods which were traded. They were manufactured at Lothal, and also the goods which were manufactured at Kuntasi and other sites, they could be brought here, and they could be traded with the help of this dockyard. Other important evidence indicating the maritime contact is that these are the ceilings, in fact, you can see here. Maybe the bales of goods were covered with clay, and they put stamps on that, and some of them got maybe burned. And you can see actually the traces of the maybe the container on which this particular clay was applied. So this is again important evidence indicating the activities, maritime activities at the site. And then of course we have a lot of data from Persian Gulf region. Some of these stone jars that you see here, they were imported by the Harappans. And a lot of these goods are found, in fact, in Persian Gulf, in Oman, Bahrain, and also in Egypt. Particularly in Egypt and Mesopotamia, all the jewelry that you see in their royal tombs, that has been imported from India. And a lot of indigo and a lot of lapis lazuli was imported by the Egyptians, and that was used, in fact, for making maybe various components of the sculptures that they produce. Then the Harappans, of course, they were pioneers in boat building, shipbuilding activities also. We have found 4 different kinds of boats and ships made by the Harappans. So this is one which you can see here. This is a wooden plank boat, flat bottom. Exactly identical boats are being made, in fact, in that part of Pakistan today. This is a boat which when I visited Mohenjo-daro in 2017, I could see that exactly the replica of the Harappan boat is being used even today. So this is a wooden plank boat, and there is a cabin inside. And there are birds also. They are called dishakaks. So that is very important. This indicates that these were not simple small boats, but the ocean-going ships. And when you are traveling a long distance, I think you need, of course, definitely you need a cabin. And the birds are required to locate the land nearby because you have no direction at all. So that is one important type of boat that the Harappans made. And the other type is the reed boat made of thick grass. And this was also capable of going deep in the sea, because in this also you can see a cabin inside. So these 2 types, we are not sure whether this reed boat was the innovation of the Harappans or the Mesopotamians, because we do get a lot of evidence of this, in fact, in the Gulf area. So probably I believe that the Harappans have innovated this particular wooden ship. And there are 3 more types, in fact. I have not brought all the types here. So that indicates that the Harappans were pioneers, in fact, in this particular activity. So this is the boat that was recovered from Mesopotamia, and this was the reed boat in fact, but it was covered in fact with bitumen, waterproof substance. Then after the Harappans, after the decline of the Harappans, now before that, what goods were made by the Harappans for the export purpose? Large carnelian beads are found in large quantity in fact in Mesopotamia and other regions. So that was one item in fact which was used by the Harappans for the trade purpose. Then they made special different kinds of shell objects, ivory objects. So these are the goods which were imported exported by the Harappans on a in a large scale. And after the decline, maybe around 1900 BCE, what happens? The Harappans, because of the climatic conditions, they were not really able to sustain in their core area, that is Indus and the Saraswati region basins. So they started, the movement was started in fact. Suddenly they are not vacated in fact. We call that as a slow decline of the Harappan culture. So people have started moving to different directions. And outside the Harappan region, of course, there were already a number of communities, early farming communities. So the Harappans went there, they got mixed up with these communities. And there they kept alive the Harappan traditions, Harappan knowledge system. And that is how we know that legacy has continued from the post-Harappan period till today. And the knowledge, we know that after the decline of the maritime trade, the Harappans started developing contact with the communities living in the coastal part. And the coastal part was used in fact for establishing communication with different cities located or the different settlements located along the coast. And that provided some kind of a backdrop for the development of the second urbanization. So just now, what happens between the Harappans and the second urbanization? We are we are providing this information to the general public also. And then of course the second wave of these large scale maritime contacts happened during the Greco-Roman world in fact after 4th century BCE. Then India, of course, after the arrival of the Alexander in Indian subcontinent, then again we established contact with the Western world, particularly with Greek and beyond. And after the Greeks, the Romans also came here, and they established contact with the communities here. And the major attraction for the Romans and the Greeks was the Indian spices. We call that as a spice trade, in fact, which was developed that time. And for carrying out the trade, the Indians have established, you can see here, number of ports. So the major port, of course, Barigaza, the Bhadoch was the major port where the big ships were coming there. And then, of course, they used to transship the material in the smaller boats, and those boats were traveling, in fact, all along from Bhadoch to maybe Nalasopara, Kalyan, Thane, down south to Chaul, and towards maybe up to maybe in South India, in fact, a site called Pattanam in Kerala. So they were coming down up to that part. So number of ports were developed in fact. So again, this maritime trade, flourishing maritime trade was established that time. And whenever we have established very flourishing trade with outside world, we were able to develop cities and towns. So the first cities and towns or the urbanization happened in fact during the Harappan times when they established contact with the Western world. Then there was a lull little bit, and then of course the second urbanization started around 5th century BCE. And that time it happened because we started developing contact with outside world on a very large scale. So this is the takeaway. In fact, this is what we have learned from our ancient cultures. Then there is a special gallery for the children for the special exhibition. So this is gallery number 5, and here we will be putting up special exhibitions maybe periodically, not only from different maybe institutions in the country, but also we have MOU with number of other countries also. So we'll be inviting them for putting up special exhibition in this. Then as I say that evolution of Indian Navy and Indian Coast Guard is perhaps one of the biggest attraction at Lothal, because they are not only showcasing the development of both, in fact, very important naval power, Indian Navy and Indian Coast Guard, but there are a lot of objects, in fact, placed in the open, which is going to be major attraction. So the role of Indian Navy, how Indian Navy has, has become the blue water navy today. Then, even, the Atmanirbhar Bharat, how they have adopted this, and how the, the technology is changing from time to time, and their role, in fact, during peacetime, wartime, the role of Indian Navy. So all this will be, will be showcased here. And one of the most important contribution of both, in fact, Indian Navy and Coast Guard, is to protect the maritime resources, which is very, very important for the country. Then at one stage, we also developed contact with trade and cultural relations with Southeast Asia and beyond. So you know that, we have established contact with Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, and also with East Asian countries like China, Korea, and Japan. And because of the trade contacts, a lot of cultural elements also have traveled. Our religions also have traveled. Buddhism, Jainism also have traveled. Then, the Indian philosophies have traveled. The Indian maybe scripts also have traveled. Number of things, have traveled from India to other countries. And similarly, some impact also has come from, that side also. So both, in fact, the tangible and intangible heritage that will be showcased, in fact, in this particular gallery. And of course, by using the archaeological data, we have been able to recreate the maritime routes, in fact, that, that were used, in fact, on the western side as well as on the eastern side of the Indian coast. And, we have the lot of archaeological authentic data, in fact, for this, in this particular respect. Then the maritime traditions of Gujarat, which is again a very important gallery that is coming up. And Gujarat has a very, very rich heritage, right from, the Harappan times till today. And particularly during the early Stoic period, when we started developing contact with Greco-Roman world, I think Gujarat has played a very, pivotal role. And, we have a lot of sites, a lot of data, which will be, showcased in fact in this particular gallery. Then the age of Emporia contact, I think, number of later kingdoms like Chola, then Chera, Pandya, Pallava, Yadava, Parmar, Kadambas, Silaharas, Pala, Sena, Kakatiya, Vijayanagara, Chalukya, Solanki, Ganga, Sultanate, and Mughals, in fact. What happens, in fact, during this particular period? How the, maritime contacts and the trade has continued, in fact, in this particular period. And particularly, the expeditions that were carried out by Cholas and Cheras and even Pallavas in the Southeast Asia, and what was the impact of this particular trade contact, with these regions, that also will be showcased in this particular gallery. And you can see that, these are number of different, dynasties that flourish on the eastern coast as well as on the western coast also. And we know that now, with whom these different dynasties had, flourishing trade outside Indian subcontinent. Then the Marathas have played a very important role. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj particularly realized the importance of the maritime activities. And he could see that, the Portuguese are coming here, the Dutch, the French are coming here, British are coming here, and everybody was trying to, have control over the coastal part of the country, because they had realized the importance of the coastal region. And for the first time, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj developed a very strong naval power, in fact. There's a record suggesting that, he had developed nearly 32 kinds of different ships. And the function of each ship and boat has been properly defined, in fact, in the chronicles. So based on this, we are recreating this particular, the maritime activities or the naval power of the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj and the Marathas. Then the arrivals of the Europeans, after the landing of the Vasco da Gama in 1498, I think number of European powers, Portuguese came here, Dutch, Danish, French, English, and they, again, they tried to have control over the coastal part. And they developed a lot of maybe infrastructure along the coastal part. So we know that what kind of infrastructure has been developed by these people, and what kind of trade was happening. So that part is being showcased in this particular gallery. Then of course this is Special Children's Gallery, one of the biggest galleries, and we want to give really the hands-on experience to the children. They should be able to learn here. They should be able to entertain here also, and at the end they should be able to express their ideas. We'll be maybe giving that opportunity to the children also. So this is going to be very interactive and very vibrant. Then the traditional shipbuilding and navigation techniques of India. I think this technique has never died. Even today there is a dhow trade happening between Mandvi and Oman, and they are using the same kind of boats the Harappans use in fact, and they are mostly transporting the essential goods like onion, garlic, etc. to these countries. So the navigation techniques that you use today is exactly same as the Harappans. Even the shipbuilding activities, the technique that they're using is exactly same. So we know that there are hubs in fact in the country. So there's one hub in Gujarat. Even in Goa also there are communities who are building this. In Kerala, in Orissa and Bengal also. So not only their we want to showcase their skill in boat building and navigation techniques, but their tangible and intangible heritage. What maybe rituals are associated with the boat building activities. When the boat is released in the water, what are the different rituals they carry out? So all this will be showcased in this particular gallery. And then of course the last gallery will be Indian shipping ports in Timbetus, and particularly the contribution of the Minister of Shipping, Ports, Shipping and Waterways, and also how the this particular ministry has contributed to the development of the nation. The Sagarmala program that they have initiated, I think that is very vibrant, and through that they are able to not only protect the resources but also they're able to mobilize the maritime resources properly. So that aspect will be showcased here. We have reconstructed the ancient routes in fact from India to to Europe, and recently in G20, the G20 countries in fact they decided to develop India Middle East Europe corridor, IMEC, and the route that following they have conceived is exactly the same route as we followed in fact in the past. So there is a lot of relevance, and if you study this properly, perhaps we will be able to contribute a lot. Then the museum will have, of course, we are acquiring in fact the archaeological objects excavated from the coastal sites. If we are not able to get the original ones, of course, we will be getting the replicas. Then through the models, through the dioramas, and a lot of digital programs, we will be explaining in fact most of the activities that happen right from the Harappans till date. So through murals also a lot of things can be explained to the visitors. So this is how it will look like. This is the front portion of the museum. We are also providing waterways inside the complex, because this is a very large complex, 400-acre large complex, and there will be hotels, restaurants located in different places. So people can walk through or they can take a boat and go to these different destinations, and also it will give that maritime look also. This is how this museum will look like. In fact, the jetty portion through which people will be making entry will look like. This is the common area that we are developing, very impressive common area we are developing. And here also we are creating that ambience, in fact the maritime ambience, by using this different artwork here. Also we are recreating the Harappan era township, and based on the actual data from different sites, we are recreating this life-size Harappan era township. At present we are calling this as a Lothal town, but ultimately it will be named as the Harappan era township, because we are getting the components of or the evidence from different Harappan cities, and that is being used for recreating this particular town. The this is how it will look like when it is complete. And this is going to be very important, Pat, for the visitors. In the middle, of course, we are developing the ancient maritime city, and on the periphery, we have requested various states to develop their pavilions. So number of states have responded: Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, and Puducherry. They have already responded, and they have started working on the concept of the coastal township. This is how the coastal city will look like. So in the coastal pavilion, of course, they will showcase their arts, their food habits, cultural, trade, then ports and shipbuilding activities. These are the aspects that we are hoping that these coastal states will showcase. So this is how the coastal pavilions will look like. This is the Gujarat pavilion. This is Maharashtra pavilion, and a lot of things in fact for the visitors to go around and explore the area. And then of course the remaining galleries will be developed in fact in 1B, and we are hoping we have already started to work on this, and we are hoping to complete this 1B in next couple of years. So our target is that by 2028 we complete the entire museum. Also, one new feature that we are also developing the underwater theming area also. So there, we will be showcasing maybe some of our oral traditions, some of our maybe the maritime resources. Also, maybe a lot of heritage, Sankan Dwarka, for example. These are the different aspects that will be showcased in the underwater theming, and this is new feature because nowhere in fact in the world this type of theming area exists in fact. This is the part of the Bagicha area that will come up in 1B. There will be a lot of parking area available here also. This is the front gate of the museum. The 5D theater that we are proposing, and we are already developing some programs in fact to showcase in this particular 5D theater. A lot of maybe features that we are developing for the tourists outside in the open area also. So we will be people will be taking ride. And they will be given choice in fact whether anybody wants to travel in Harappan boat or maybe the Roman boat or Maratha boat. That choice will be given. And in these heritage hotels, restaurants, we will also be able to serve the ancient food also, because we know what food the Harappans ate, because scientifically we have recreated. And for the subsequent period, of course, we have a lot of data available. So people will be able to enjoy in fact here in this. So this is how the Mujotel hotels will look like. These are some of the eco resorts that we are thinking of. So this will be developed because eco resorts will be developed on the PPP mode, and we are already started inviting some public-private partnership in this. Some of the theme parks, there also will be inviting number of agencies for developing these. This is for representation purpose. We will not showcase the known monuments here, mostly the monuments which are related to the maritime activities like Shore Temple and maybe the Angkor Wat, etc. That will come here. The climate change park, this is required because for the education purpose this will be developed. Amusement will be required because we expect that people to stay here maybe a couple of days, at least at the weekends. And for the children, of course, some amusement is required. Then the ancient site, of course, now archaeological, in fact, we suggested the Archaeological Survey of India that they continue the excavation here and at least excavate 50 to 60% of the site so that we could get more insight about the maritime history of Lothal. And they already started, and that site will be developed from tourism point of view also. So we are helping the Archaeological Survey of India here. We also have MOUs with a number of countries. Already we have signed MOUs with 4 countries. And we want to sign more, in fact, MOUs with institutions within the country and outside the country also. Then, as I said that, the Gujarat government has already established the area development plan, and all the development that will happen around, the museum will be systematic development. In fact, I suggested the development authority that they can adopt the Harappan town planning, in fact, outside, in the uh, in the development area that they are proposing. So this is what we are in fact doing at the site of Lothal, and I'm happy that some of the people working in fact at Lothal, like Sej is here. In fact, they are developing one of the maybe 2 or 3 galleries, and Rajiv Nigamji is one of our honorable members of the curation committee, and we want to develop a contact or the MOU in fact with INTAC also, because INTAC is now developing this maritime expertise. Plus, we also want to develop, state of the art, the conservation center also. There we need maybe support from INTAC. So maybe at some stage we'll approach you also. So again, I take this opportunity to thank all of you for coming here, and particularly to Monisha ji and the group here. Thank you very much.
We'll take quick 2-3 questions.
Two very short questions, sir. You showed the picture, the iconography of the Disa Kaka. In Odisha, we call it Disa Kaka. And Disa Kaka is something that we find common all across the western coast as well as the eastern coast.
Right.
Did we manage, in all these research, did we manage to find out which breed of birds were used as Disa Kaka?
Now we are doing research on that, because we want to understand the species impact, which
because
species
that
were
was
used. Yes.
one of the key
Yes.
navigation techniques that were used.
Exactly, yes. And we are interacting with number of people who are using this navigation techniques, traditional navigation techniques, and I think we'll be able to get some information about the kind of birds that they use for this particular purpose.
Yes. And the second question is, you mentioned the importance or the significance of Navy in ensuring the protection of the assets.
Yeah, right.
Any maritime trade will not flourish without a navy, strong navy.
Yes.
Did you people manage to find out, in both the coastlines, the presence of navy? I'm not speaking of the Maratha navy,
Yes.
but the Harappan navy, or on the eastern coast, the Kalinga navy, or the Bengal Tamralipta sector, or
I think Kalinga and Cholas, apart from Marathas, they also had a very strong navy.
Right.
And we are getting some traces of that in the form of archaeological remains,
Right.
as well as there's a lot of information, textual information available for this also.
Right, because that
So,
is one segment
yeah.
that we see that the discussion on navy has not been done.
That is not done right.
Yeah.
And even the Indian Navy is developing this particular gallery.
Right.
So they are also giving the background in fact. So they have done some research on this Marakkal, this Marathas, Cholas, and the type of ships that were used in fact
Right.
during that period.
Right.
So we are recreating that.
Right.
And a lot of models in fact. In the Harappan gallery, we are putting a life size Harappan ship. Already it is in place. And in other galleries also, maybe different kinds of boats used during the Satwan period, or maybe during the Indo-Roman period. Even the different kinds of ships that were used by Shivaji, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, that will be also created, and the models will be kept there. So we have hired the Swarup Bhattacharya for this purpose. So we are getting some authentic people for developing these different aspects.
It was so fascinating. I could have gone on for another 1 hour, if you had just spoken about it. Because this Lothal was a dockyard and everything was being exported from here, there are a few communities who are doing many of these things by hand. For example, the bead making. And like that, so now there's only one family doing that particular bead thing in Cambodge area.
Khambhat.
So if there is any plan to develop these things, because if they die out, then the whole thing will, that art will die out.
No,
So-
we have a big plan in fact.
Yeah.
See, not only maybe reviving the traditional craft, but also we are identifying some educated people, maybe students from the surrounding villages, and we want to train them for guiding the tourists, etc., visitors. So we want to do that, and we have identified number of crafts which can be revived, and bead making is one of them. Of course, we have already started interacting with Anwar, who has kept this particular trade alive in fact. So we are thinking about that in a big way, of course.
That was such a fascinating history. I was just wondering that we have so many thousand years of maritime trade and you have a navy. Is there no evidence of any war, conflict, or was this a complete period of peace? Because if that was so, we should be learning something. That
No,
how
there is a lot of
come
evidence of the conflict also.
conflicts as
Particularly during the Pallava and Chola period, maybe
yeah,
10,
later,
11th century.
yeah. But the earlier,
Earlier, we do not have that kind
you
of
don't
evidence.
have the
no.
evidence.
No.
But you also talked of a period when the trade goes down and then it revives.
Yes.
Is there any historical evidence of why the trade went down?
Yeah, there is a scientific evidence, in fact. Because of the
Acha.
climatic condition,
Okay. Because
they say the climate became dry around 1900 BCE. And, the Harappans, they were not able to sustain in their area. In fact, they started moving out. And at the same time, because of the climate change, the sea level has gone down also. So some of the ports, Lothal was not the only port, in fact. We have identified nearly 32 Harappan ports on the Makran coast, even in Saurashtra also. There are many ports also. So these ports became useless because of because the sea level went down. So they became almost inland settlements. And the strength of the Harappans was that they were getting so much wealth from the west. So because that trade was stopped, disrupted, they were not able to generate so much wealth. And because of that, again they went back to the rural life, in fact. They developed from rural to urban, but again they went back to rural life like that. But that is a phase, in fact. But again, when there was a proper maybe atmosphere, again, these trades thrive again. And again we started, contacting, these different regions and, again, the flourishing state, began, in fact. So that is, something. And one important thing that we should learn from this ancient trade or the ancient maritime activity is the trade. And that I always give the example that the Harappans, as I say that, they had the technology with them, but then, they had no resources. They imported resources, they used the technology, they made a lot of finished goods and supplied the finished goods to the same people from whom they were acquiring the raw material. And this is what exactly this knowledge has survived. This is what exactly Japan did, in fact. After Second World War, Japan was almost destroyed, in fact. I've seen Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and nobody could believe that Japan will rise again. But Japan rose as an economic power within 15 years. And they showcased, in fact, during the Tokyo Olympics, 1964. They adopted the same strategy as the Harappans. They had the technology with them, but no resources. So they imported resources from developing countries like India, China, made finished goods and supplied to the same countries, in fact, on large scale. That is how the economy boomed, in fact. So that is something that we should learn from our ancient maritime trade also.
Thank you, sir. We have a small token of appreciation. May I invite our Member Secretary, Dr. Ravinder Singh ji, to give it to sir. Thank you, Professor Shinde, for providing a very comprehensive and scholarly overview of India's enduring maritime legacy and the strategic significance of the National Maritime Heritage Complex at Lothal. With this lecture, we have wrapped up our series on maritime heritage, but since it's a very vast topic, we may curate another series later in the year. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming and supporting us. Today is the fourth day and I see almost a house full, so fatigue has not set in. Thank you so much. Please join us for a cup of tea outside.